Hello again, everybody. Dave LaMont with you here on A Nooner with Dave, episode 2, coming to you from my home in South Florida. And thank you very much, first off, for everybody watching episode number 1, which dropped a few days ago and is now available on YouTube. I'm delighted you could watch. And the other big news that came out of this is my YouTube followers went up 22-fold, 22 times the YouTube followers, subscribers, than I had when this show began a few days ago. Now, the good reason for that is I only had 3. Now I have 67. Not enough to consider myself a YouTube influencer, but by God, if I can go up 22 times today, we're in good shape. So welcome aboard. A couple of days ago, I thought to myself, boy, this is going to be tough. I had some easy subjects in day 1 to talk about, and I don't know how I'm going to pull this off today. Well, it's not going to be difficult. The topic sheet, my very sophisticated topic sheet, is full. Also, one more thing before I dig into this. If you're wondering, am I ever going to expand the look of this program, I've already tried, and I've already not gotten it done quite just right yet. It will happen one day. I've had some tips, and I'll get there. I do want to have some guests. I have several people in mind who would be wonderful to have on, but for the moment, it's just this lovely setting we have here. So I wanted to start with a topic, and some of this stuff's going to be virus-related today, which I really didn't want to get into. But in sports, it is literally inescapable. You cannot not talk about it. So one of the big debates that's come up with the 60-game Major League season, the reduced NBA season, the upcoming NHL, whatever they decide to do, and they still don't even know where they're playing yet, is if whoever wins that title, if we get that far, if we actually go to the finish line, a lot of people that I've read have written that it would not be very significant if a team won a title this year. And I don't think that's true. I understand. I'm not worried about records being set. I'm not worried about, like, if James Harden averages 45 points a game in a limited schedule, whatever record. No, not worried about any of that. But if you win under the circumstances where these players are going to be placed in virtual isolation, even at Disney, even the biggest Disney file in the world doesn't want to be isolated there for months, away from people, away from being able to go outside that Disney bubble that they're calling it. I think it would be a significant accomplishment. The other thing is, I really do, because these are unprecedented, I know, unprecedented times, the new normal, we're all in this together. Anyway, it is significant because we've never had conditions like this, trying conditions. We've had players who have chosen to drop out. 100% they're right, by the way. I support that completely. They want to drop out, they can drop out. You're like a training camp-like environment, no fans, so you don't have any home court at all. You're going to be playing. What's the mental attitude going to be like? How are guys going to approach this? That's the other thing to watch. But yes, I think this would be significant if you could win under these conditions. I know about fewer games and all the rest of that stuff. That's fine. But I think these challenges have never been seen before. You'd agree with me there. So whoever wins the NBA title, and the other thing, by the way, that I find fascinating, and let's talk about the NBA for a moment. Can we just assume that the teams that were the best teams when the season shut down in March, will they be good again a few months later? Now, it's the same people. LeBron's still on the Lakers. Giannis is still on the Bucks, and so on. Or will it be the teams that can play best together? Well, not will be. It will be the teams that can play best together. That's the other thing I'm curious about. Is there going to be somebody who might have been a 6th seed had the season gone on and not had home court advantage? Will they actually be the one to surprise the dickens out of everybody and win a title or maybe get to the finals? I don't have any answers to those questions. I really don't, because you don't either, and I don't think the players know. You look at the Miami Heat, and if you're not in South Florida like I am, obviously that's the team we keep an eye on a lot here. They have not had any real significant issues. They did have one player test positive, Derek Jones, but otherwise they're ready to go. That's a team that plays well together. They could be a problem. I think they were going to be a problem anyway. But I'm fascinated to see how this all turns out. It's not going to be like anything we've ever seen before, and that's what makes it kind of cool. The big issue is, are we going to finish the darn thing? Is the NBA going to finish? Is Major League Baseball going to finish? Is the NA and so forth? And are we going to start football on time? And that leads me to something else. Quite by accident, I had a short conversation with a high school athletic director down south. Again, we're talking about South Florida. The concern is, are we going to play high school football soon? First off, how are schools going to be run and opened? A legit question that I know is still being worked on. But as the athletic director pointed out one thing that's different, and if you don't know Florida very well, the stuff about Florida Man and all the other stuff, it is true. It is absolutely true. In North Florida, I was told they are practicing. South Florida, they are doing conditioning. That is a big difference. And the grave concern in the South is fans, bands, any of that stuff. I doubt it's going to happen. Can you protect the players? I don't know. You can do the best you can, but every school is different. You have public and private. You have different resource situations. Testing is widely available in our county, but you got to get appointments, all the other stuff. I don't know if they can play high school football on time. I really don't. There are a lot of obstacles, and that goes for college, and that goes for the NFL. The NFL, by the way, and this is an excellent move on their part, they just went to 2 preseason games. Gone. Bravo. Virus or no virus, that should happen. Because those things are awful. I understand they're important to the guys who play in them, but half the players you want to see don't play in them. And let's face it, if you go to an exhibition game, within 5 minutes, you're on your phone, and you're not paying any attention. Just facts. So you've got that situation where about high school to college. What if and something I just read this morning that fascinated the heck out of me. High school football players, let's say that some parts of the country decide we're going to wait till next year, and we're going to play high school football in the spring. Okay. What are the seniors who are going to do who have college aspirations with college football, whatever is college football is going to look like in 2021? What are they going to do? They're going to play their senior seasons, or are they going to just go to college? The ones that are being recruited. And again, if you ever look it up, go look up how hard it is to make it to get a college scholarship, and then how even harder it is to get to the pros. So don't think I'm talking about every kid playing high school football. But those seniors who are being heavily recruited or even lightly recruited, do they risk an injury in April, realizing that after they graduate, they're going to go on to college, maybe lose a year, maybe they're going to have to redshirt as freshmen? Now, some of them would do anyway. But do you run the risk of an injury that could end your career or seriously damage it playing high school football to play your senior year out? It's a great question. And if I were one of those young men, I would give it some serious thought, and I probably wouldn't play. And maybe I'm the guy to lead my team because I'm the quarterback and I'm the stud and I'm the guy who makes everybody better around me. Do I just go, sorry guys, can't do it. I'm going to Big State College U of whatever, and I got to protect myself. And if the young man makes that decision, I wouldn't blame him one bit. So that's what we're looking at. The Ivy League is going to set a tone that I don't know if the bigger conferences are going to follow about possibly playing in the spring. I read an article yesterday that said it's almost 100% certain the Ivy League is going to do that. Now, the Ivy League is a different drummer. The Ivy League does not play like the other FCS schools, the level below the bowl schools, the national championship schools. These are the ones that have the playoffs. The Ivy League does not participate in the playoff. They could. They're certainly qualified. I've seen Ivy League football. It's solid. But they just play their 10-game season. Somebody wins the Ivy League regular season, and that's all, folks. That's it. So the Ivy League does do things a little differently. Larry Scott, who runs the Pac-12, said we could pivot on college football within a month. Pivot from we're going to play in September to no, we're not. We're going to wait, or we're going to shorten the season. There was already a cancellation today. Lafayette's not going to go play at the Naval Academy in September, Lafayette College, which would have been a nice game for them. Playing the Navy is an honor. Playing in Annapolis would be a thrill, all of that stuff. Annapolis is beautiful, by the way, and that campus is right on the water. Well, it's Navy, I guess that makes sense. Come to think of it, you'd expect them to have a campus right on the water. But that's just one. You've seen some of the smaller schools have canceled seasons, or I'd hate to see this for selfish reasons. But things are trending in the wrong direction in a lot of places. Not everywhere, thank heavens, but in a lot of places. I can tell you that the University of Wyoming, go Pokes, just had a Zoom call with them yesterday, and how they're approaching things as our youngest son gets set to leave for there on Sunday. And I'm impressed. They have a doctor in charge of all of that, and they're doing everything they can. But does that mean that there's not going to be one or two people who slip up and go out when they're not supposed to and mingle with folks? It can happen. It's all it takes. You've seen the news. So that's the real big frustration with all of that, is so much is out of our control. And I just don't know what's going to happen. I have thoughts. I'm beginning to have some more doubts about football being played on time. I certainly don't expect to see fans in the stands. I think that'd be nuts. And would you sign a waiver to go watch your favorite NFL team? I wouldn't. I have a couch. My TV's pretty good. Bought one about a year ago. I'm okay with staying home. So you imagine the gall of the NFL actually asking you, hey, would you mind signing this? Yeah, just remember MASH? How many of you all remember MASH? Remember where Radar, especially with Colonel Blake. He couldn't do it with Colonel Potter, but with Colonel Blake, McLean Stevenson, remember he would have a stack of papers about yay thick, and Blake would just sign. And at the bottom of the stack of the papers was something that what Radar really wanted him to sign, like some crazy order. And he just signed it, Blake, because he wasn't paying attention. That's kind of what the NFL's trying to slip up there. Oh, yeah, just like, yeah, you can't sue us. So don't fall for that. Speaking of the NFL, you were talking to a native of the Washington, D.C. area. Born in Northern Virginia, left there when I was 15, but still feel a little bit of a pull to that area. And, yeah, I still root for teams, most of them, up there. I'm an Orioles fan. After the Washington Senators left, I can't root for the Texas Rangers, but I root for the Orioles in the Baltimore area. I root for the Washington Capitals hockey team. And yes, I still root for the Washington NFL team. As bad as they are, I still hope they do well. You notice what I called them. Or more interestingly, what I didn't call them. Now, there was a statement just released by that team today where the word Redskins was used about 10 times, including in the release and all this other stuff. But now they've announced they're going to consider taking everything into consideration. They're going to look at maybe changing the name. May I point out to you, the only reason this became relevant is the one way you can affect change, the wallet. Daniel Snyder, not my favorite guy in the world, although the only thing, to his credit, he took care of Sean Taylor's family when Taylor was murdered, and he has done a good job with that. But Dan Snyder has repeatedly said we have fan polls, and they do have fan polls that say the fans don't want the name changed. Snyder doesn't want to change the name. There are a lot of people around the country that would be mad because they feel they would be bowing to the gods of political correctness. But political correctness doesn't write checks. And FedEx, the title sponsor of that abomination in Maryland that they play in, FedEx Field, apparently, I've never been there, but everybody hates it. Dan Snyder wants to put the team back in Washington, D.C., and he could get the land where RFK Stadium still is, but it won't be there much longer. They're going to tear it down. That's in D.C., so it really would be the district's team. And the Washington, D.C. teams draw from parts of Maryland, parts of Virginia, and of course from the district itself. They've told him, hey, love to have you, Danny. Change the name. Shareholders for FedEx, for Pepsi, and another company that I'm blanking on at the moment have said, change the name. And now FedEx, the boss, who's a part owner of the team, changed the name. Now I'm going to be dying to see what Dan Snyder does here. Nike. Did you see this? If you go to Nike.com, you can't find anything that says Washington. It's gone. They took it off. You can go to the team store through the team's website if you care to. But, and maybe I'm falling into the political correctness trap as well. I don't wear anything that says that on. And I am a fan. And I'd love to see the team do great again. Maybe Ron Rivera will help. Seemed like a smart hire to me. But I feel uncomfortable. One of my students, Native American student, and one of her commentaries was on names that she finds offensive as a Native American. And that's right there at the top, brother. Right there at the top. And I have a problem with it too at this point. And you're welcome to disagree with that. That's fine. I don't think the world goes to hell if a team changes its name. And yeah, you're going to have to buy rebrand logos and all this stuff. Okay, fine. So I think it has to be done. I think the stink is too great here. And I mean by stink, the noise, the smoke, whatever you want to call it, is too great here to not do something. And as a fan who still hopes one day before I go to wherever I'm going to go, up or down, that gets fixed, gets changed. Because it's been done a lot of other places. Colleges particularly. Now, the Florida State Seminole is a different matter. I researched that and I've talked to people about this before. That's a partnership. They're okay with each other. There's a great deal of respect and admiration between the Seminole tribe, which is a very, if you don't know, a very strong tribe in the state of Florida, and the folks at Florida State University. So I don't expect that's ever going to go anywhere. But what about the Cleveland Indians, for example? Been debate about that. Will that ever change? I know I think they're erasing or getting rid of the Chief Wahoo logo that's been around there forever. So there's movement in that direction. Whether you think people are succumbing to political correctness, and Lord knows I've read enough comments on social media where people do think that it is a ridiculous bow to the gods of political correctness. You are totally entitled to that opinion. But I think something is happening here, and I wouldn't be surprised if it gets overturned. Let's just hope we can get to watch whatever team represents Washington this year, if we're going to be allowed to. So let's shift a little bit. And by the way, if you have any questions, my friend Jamie, who happens to work for Cleveland.com, has pointed out that Chief Wahoo is going to be out in a year from the uniforms. And it does take a little bit of time to transition. So, Jamie, thank you for that very, very much, for giving me a heads up about that. I know you would know, of course, because that's your beat. But I wanted to get away from this just for a little bit to talk about what some show business things that I wanted to get into, because I promised it wasn't going to be all sports. But the week got off to a horrible start with the loss of Carl Reiner. And as I said on postings, if you ever enjoyed a sitcom, if a sitcom ever made you laugh in your life, Carl Reiner had a lot to do with that, even if he wasn't directly affiliated with that sitcom. Because writers were inspired by the Dick Van Dyke Show. And I believe it's tonight on CBS that you can watch two colorized Dick Van Dyke shows, which I'm sure Reiner will be in as Alan Brady, basically playing himself. And I can't wait to see him. I'm absolutely going to record them. Oh, I'm sorry, Jamie let me back up before I get too far. Jamie pointing out the Wahoo is already gone. I misread his statement. So the Wahoo's off the Cleveland uniform. So thank you for that. So the Dick Van Dyke shows, I think they'll be funny. I think they're still funny. I think the formula, if you have great writers, great actors, it can be funny no matter if the show is in black and white or HD. It's still funny to me. I still watch Bob Newhart. I still watch Mary Tyler Moore shows. They're funny. They're well cast. So looking forward to that tonight. But then there was some good news. Finally, in a week that has been basically raining garbage on our heads for a lot of the things we're reading about, to the return of two shows that, if you know me, you know how delighted I am. First, of course, the return of Beavis and Butthead. If I could have dug it out of the closet, I have a Beavis and Butthead Christmas shirt. I have always been a fan of the lads, although I must admit I was disappointed in the 2011 retake. And the reason was they were missing the videos. When they hit when MTV was rolling in the 80s. And they would just mercilessly mock those videos. If you go to your YouTubes, you can see the relentless, merciless mocking, and it's hysterical. Loved it. I love the double entendre stuff. I'm a child. I am a child. I might be however old I am, but inside beats the tiny heart of a 14-year-old boy who never quite grew up from Longfellow Middle School. So yes, I think they're funny. Mike Judge has done wonderful work. King of the Hill, Office Space, a bunch of other things. So I'm hoping that this time it'll be funnier than it was in 2011, and I can't wait. Turn them loose. Let them be idiots. Let's see how they manage what he called the Gen Z and millennial crowd, and we'll see if it works out. The other show that really there should be, we should have a holiday, is the return of Curb Your Enthusiasm for season number 11, when nobody knows. That's up to Larry David. But I couldn't have been happier, and I suspected it was going to be as much. I thought season 10, for the most part, was absolutely outstanding. I thought there were a couple of episodes that were all-timers. And as long as Larry and his staff have something to complain about, there will be Curb Your Enthusiasm. And if you don't think that there's a guy who can find humor in what's going on in the last few months and will use that humor in a pointed, sarcastic, and nasty way, it'll be Larry, and I can't wait. And there's something else, and I noticed this past season. I find that as the season goes on, I start acting more and more like Larry. Maybe not quite as obnoxious, but I start to say things out loud that I wouldn't say out loud before, especially when I was at the height of traveling season for a while. Are there airports still around, by the way? I haven't been in a while. Do they still exist? No, anyway. Yeah, I would start to murmur something or say something in line if I noticed somebody doing something stupid. This is true. I called somebody out on a chat and cut. You know, where you pass somebody by pretending to chat with the other person in a line? I called somebody out on that once. That is true. So I don't know if that's something I should be proud of, that I act like Larry David. But I do. Without, the 9-figure income that Larry has stashed away someplace. But anyway, I am absolutely delighted that Larry and his group, Cheryl and Jeff, and only Larry could make Ted Danson into a villain. Ted Danson is an American treasure, all right? And Larry somehow has made Ted Danson a villain. That's acting, and that's great writing, or ad-libbing, actually, in the case of the show. Because as most of you know, there's very little script. There's outline. There might be a key phrase or two. But that show is improv, and it's even a real tribute to the way the actors work. Real quick story. I did get to meet, back when I was with Paul and Young Ron, I don't know, this had to be 6 or 7 years ago, J.B. Smoot, who plays Uncle Leon. And he told me how they did it in rehearsal. They don't say the line in rehearsal. So if he's working on something, he told me he would do this. He would look at Larry, and he'd go, "Hey, Larry, ... Larry, ... and made practice the cadence, but he wouldn't say what he would say. And he would save that so that when he did it, it would be natural, and he would get a natural reaction from Larry. Now, I understand that Larry is the world's worst at cracking up, so they probably had to do it a few times. But it's brilliant. I love it dearly. My wife and I will sit there like this, like, oh, he's not, is he really going to, oh, God, don't do this. And he does it every time. So God bless Larry David and all of that. Two more quick things regarding July 4th, and I want to look at some of the comments, and if there's any questions there, I'll be happy to go through them if I can't answer them. We do have a big day tomorrow. It's going to be the weirdest July 4th on record. Obviously, our city, the controversially named Plantation, has normally a gargantuan July 4th deal where, I don't know, hundreds, if not a couple, 2, 3, I don't know how many thousands show up to see it in a huge park. So there's plenty of room, or you can just park your car and go walk in the street. You can see them everywhere. Obviously, the only way I'll be able to watch that this year will be on this device right here. Or I could just flip on PBS or whatever is available. But this makes me think that Frankie Fireworks is going to load up his or her trunk and decide, well, if I can't have the July 4th in my city, I'm going to have it in my backyard or on the street. You're right, it's legal, at least it is where I live. But I would ask, as a dog owner, and there are a lot of dogs in my neighborhood, my dog can take a lot, but fireworks scare her to death. So I would ask that you keep that in some consideration when you decide that you're going to empty $200 worth of fireworks at one time in your street or in your backyard. And even occasionally, I've heard reports that there are some veterans who deal with PTSD who are bothered by these explosions. So do keep that in mind if you would, please. The other thing that I can't wait to not pay any attention to, once again, is the Nathan's hot dog eating contest, which I guess is still going on. I imagine there are fewer contestants. I guess Joey Chestnut is still around. And I can't imagine anything dumber than this. I really can't. I know. And by the way, I've just started watching Man vs. Food again, where the goal is to stuff as much food in your face as you possibly can, like a 2.5-pound cupcake, which I could have done that one, by the way. Absolutely. And all these hot things and gargantuan 3-pound this. And I know. I get it. So, no. But the whole thing with the water and the shoving and it's gross. It's American grotesqueness and overdone at its worst. Unlike, Beavis and Butthead and Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is at its best. So once again, I will be boycotting that July 4th ceremony, but I will be looking forward to the city actually taking the parade literally on the road, and apparently the whole parade's going to drive through every part of the city, which is nice, and watching fireworks safely with my dog probably in my lap in front of my TV. A few comments here before we go on. A very dear friend of mine, Art Dion, who Art and I literally grew up together in D.C., in the D.C. area, and he is now in Arkansas doing some great work. And he actually lived here, too, for a while. Says that Adam Schefter is reporting that, of ESPN, that it's likely that the name will be changed. And I agree more. Colleen, I miss being on the radio, too. Can't do anything about it right now, but Paul's show is doing very well without me, so maybe I was the weak link. Stu Opperman, another dear friend. I've used the term political correctness quite a bit. Stu says it's not political correctness, it's an awareness that some of the old ways are offensive to some people, and the rest of us are obligated to do better because we know better. And John Jensen, a solid human being who bought me breakfast once, said Beavis and Butthead saved his sanity while he was stationed in North Dakota. Dude, I didn't know that. That's impressive. So, looking, I don't see any actual questions. Which is fine. Yes. And, Lisa, by the way, Lisa, thinking about you and your sister, what your sister's gone through. If you know Lisa from Facebook, I won't go into the details, but it's awful, and we're thinking about you, Lisa, for sure. To many high school students, sports is a salvation, and you are absolutely right. And to all of us, well, not all of us, but to a lot of us, a lot of you out there, sports is a salvation. I would love to have it come back, and eventually it will. And it's very personal in our family, and I'll have to save that for another day. I don't want to take too much time. But if you know me well, you know what I'm talking about. But I'll get into that maybe next show. But yeah, I agree with you. I would love to be able to go to a high school football game in September. Probably won't be able to go, but at least have it. But I just don't know. And I don't think the athletic directors do either. So with that cheerful note, a couple of reminders. Anybody want to sponsor? I'll take a sponsor. I don't have a rate card, but we'll work something out. This show will be on YouTube maybe as soon as midnight. It was actually easier than I thought to download it. I will work on getting more elements. I'm going to announce that if I have this show with guests, that I want Kelly Craig to be my first guest. All right, so Kelly, you may get to this later or somebody tip her off. I want her to be my first guest. She was very encouraging about me doing this, and so I want to bring her on to harass her endlessly for why. Also, next show will be Tuesday. I was going to do Monday, and then I booked the tea time for 10 o'clock, and I don't want to rechange it. So it'll be Tuesday at noon. Hey, at least I don't have a firm schedule yet, but most likely in the future, I'm going to aim for Mondays and Fridays at 12 o'clock Eastern Time. So that'll do it. I really appreciate all of your time, and as always, really, really appreciate you watching and your comments. Please leave them as you watch. Any other questions, I'll try to answer them later today or whenever. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'd love to get to triple digits by the weekend if that's possible. Have a wonderful, safe July 4th. I'm a mask guy, so please wear yours wherever you go. And again, I am Dave LaMont. It's been a Nooner with Dave. I will see you Tuesday at noon Eastern next week. Goodbye.